What's up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel, Morgan Allena, True Crime and Mystery. Today, I want to go over a couple of the individuals, specifically the males that are involved within the case. So obviously, there are quite a few various scenarios and individuals that are involved in this case, and it is a very complicated case when you actually start going through it, and it's not as cut and dry as they want you to believe. So this video was more so just to kind of go over the various individuals that are, outside of being directly Gypsy and Nick. Obviously, we know Nick is one of the main characters, but I want to talk about David Blanchard. There is Dan the man, who Gypsy was in love with and ran away with, or two, I guess I could say. And then there's another person named William involved in this case throughout the reports. And I just want to kind of go through some of these people. And I want to be clear, I'm not accusing anybody of anything. Let's just get that out of the way and be very, very clear about that, okay? This is not an accusation of anything. This is just a pure discussion, reviewing some of the information within the case, or relating to the case, anyway. So let's get into that. But before we do, please like and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos like this, or if you have any suggestions about anything that you want me to cover, let me know that too down in the comments. I read you guys' comments and I really appreciate everybody that watches my videos and supports me. So yeah. One of these clips that I'm going to use about one of the individuals in this video is from a TikTok that I posted at another time, so that's obviously why it's going to look a little different. It's from another portion, so I'm just going to put it in here. That way I don't have to spend more time talking about it, go through it that way. This is an interview with William Osborne on June 14th, 2015. I was assigned to make contact with William Osborne. Date of birth, March 23rd, 1971. I made phone contact with William, who stated he would like to meet me at the McDonald's located at 3320 East Battlefield Road, Springfield, Missouri. William told me he was a member of the Star Wars Club called NCIS, and Gypsy was a member of the Star Wars 501st Club. William told me he knew Gypsy and he wanted to talk to me in person. I made personal contact with William at McDonald's at the address mentioned previously. William stated he was concerned about Gypsy's well-being, and if her wheelchair was at the residence, then he feared something horrible had happened to her. William said he contacted several of the NCIS and 501st members, and none of the members knew the whereabouts of Gypsy, and they were concerned for her well-being. William was unable to give any pertinent information about the whereabouts of Gypsy, and he told me he wanted to help in any way. I gave William a business card with my phone number and to call me if he discovered any other information. So basically, I went searching on the internet and I found somebody by the same name, William Osborne, and coincidentally, it was on some website where I guess you can go to cemeteries and give information, like you'll take pictures of the cemetery plot and provide information for people, which... Here's his bio on that website. It says, I live in Springfield, Missouri. I was born in Long Beach, California. I was born in March of 1971. Feel free to email me and ask me anything. I stumbled on to find a grave by accident and I love it. I love researching history, and cemeteries can be a big part of that. Feel free to write to me as long as it is in my local area. So we have this guy who, after hearing the news, supposedly, decides to call the police to tell them literally nothing. While they're in the middle of searching for Gypsy, he just calls to say, I'm worried and I want to meet with you, to just say I'm worried. Is it possible that this guy was looking to get more information about something? Why would he waste a detective's time to tell them literally nothing? That's very weird and very abnormal, in my opinion. Especially if you look at this, he was born in 1971, so he's also a much older dude who likes to hang around cemeteries. And this is all alleged, and I'm not accusing him of anything, but you would think that someone that's just like an acquaintance of Gypsy, I know they were probably friends, but is much, much older than what he supposedly probably knew. If he was a normal person, he would have known that she was younger. Why would he go out of his way to call the police, to meet with them, to say nothing? Was he just trying to get information to see what they knew? or where they were headed, because it doesn't mention him anymore in the police files. You know, why wouldn't he just say that on the phone, that he was worried and he would like to help in any way? But he called to schedule a meeting, to go to the meeting, to say nothing. It's a really weird behavior. I think that's weird that this dude who likes to hang around cemeteries is so concerned that he calls the police for it. You know, like he could just talk to, you know, neighbors and friends that are involved in the case or whoever, like normal people do. I don't really know of anybody that would just do that, to call and schedule a meeting just to say nothing. Usually you have some sort of information, but maybe he was possibly fishing for information. I don't know. I've not really seen people mention this. Also a member of the Star Wars Club, where she also met Dan. And, you know, since I'm talking about Dan, I found this interesting little piece, because as we all know, Gypsy was planning to meet with another man at a cupcake shop to have an experience with them, but it's never discussed who, according to the messages that we have. So here she texts Nick and was like, honey, I was wondering, say I wanted to have the guy before leaving town. Could I? He agreed to meet up. We are gonna get coffee at this cupcake place Thursday, so we will close that. And of course it's speculated that this is Dan. I don't know. Could it have been this other dude from the Star Wars thing? I'm not accusing him of anything. I don't know him, and I'm just asking questions. Because if you look at these home network devices, so these were all the devices that were connected to the Wi-Fi out or some other previous time. And I find it interesting that there's so many of these that are named Sebastian. I mean, obviously it could go for, you know, the Little Mermaid, but could it also be like something with Sebastian County? Because this is allegedly Dan, and this is from the Sebastian County where his mugshots are. So he was on parole at one point. I don't know if they were monitoring his phones or devices. I don't know if that's a possibility and he didn't know that. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think that this William Osborne could have played a bigger role in something, or could it have been Dan and then he sent William over there to fish for some information? I just find it odd that these two grown-ass men were worried about an allegedly disabled young girl who was believed to be, you know, 18, 19, however old at the time. That's just major red flag behavior, in my opinion. But I don't know. What do you guys think? So obviously we all go back and forth about who the right Dan is, which picture. It's really not important what he looks like. He's only just a portion of this and went out of his way a little bit to try to stay hidden and to distance himself from this. Obviously we know that Gypsy insinuated at one point that Dan knew she was an adult when she ran away to him, and multiple times that Dan was going to, or the plan was for Dan to take her away from her mother to some farm in Arkansas. And I want to say this is like one of the funniest things I've ever noticed. When I was looking up this individual, Dan, I came across some information about him and various, you know, people that he's associated with and relatives, or someone that is associated with him. I would assume his mother, because according to Gypsy, she said that they were from Arkansas and they had a farm over there. They didn't have a farm in Arkansas. They were from Farmington, Arkansas. Look at this. They didn't have a farm in Arkansas. So funny to me, because I wonder if he was just like, what are you saying? What are you talking about the farm? Like, I can just like picture it right now, them talking or whatever. But maybe he just didn't want to correct her on that. Or maybe she's purposely misleading things to not reveal too much, but regardless, it was Farmington, Arkansas, you can see right here. And apparently at the time, Gypsy Rose Blanchard said that she wasn't aware, or she soon became aware, that Dan at the time was actually on probation. And this was not for anything really that serious. From my research that I found, it was pretty much for just a simple drug charge. It was a marijuana charge. And interestingly enough, he tried to get it expunged from his record recently within the past year. You can see here that he tried to get it expunged and it was denied. so he was not allowed to get his record expunged for that. He does go by various aliases. I'm not going to attach all that information because I don't want to put all of that out there and get him, too far into things. But that's Dan, okay? And then obviously we know that there's David Blanchard. I'm going to say Blanchard because it's just easier for me. But David Blanchard was the neighbor. Him and his wife were apparently very close with Dee Dee. I want to read an article from David, when they were asking him questions about the whole situation and happened. How did this come about? Obviously, we know that he said he snuck in through a window in the home, which people have doubts about that because obviously he's not a very, very small individual, and I don't mean that disrespectfully. He's a large, tall man, and the window that he said that he possibly could have climbed in, it doesn't add up because there was never any sort of, movement or materials. And I have actually read somewhere that somebody said he had a key to the home, so they don't understand why he actually needed to go through a window at all. But obviously things kind of get misconstrued whenever things are like in the public like this, and it's very easy to get misinformation spread. So if I'm not showing you an actual picture of something, always be careful, and I will try to be very clear about off of various things that have been said throughout the public, whatever the case may be. So this is an article, interview, whatever, that just happened right after Dee Dee was murdered. This says, David Blanchard had no idea the twisted case he was walking into when he crawled into his friend's window Sunday afternoon. Blanchard said he was in the home on Volunteer Way just north of Springfield for less than 5 minutes as he looked around to make sure his friends Claudina, Dee Dee Blanchard, and her daughter Gypsy weren't lying helplessly injured or worse inside the pink house. This is a picture of Kim and David Blanchard during the interview at their house in Springfield on June 17th, 2015. They were friends with Gypsy and Dee Dee, who lived only a couple blocks away. And David Blanchard said the deputies on the scene had given him permission to enter the home, touched very little in the time between when he climbed through the tinted kitchen window and the time he walked out of the front door of the home. I didn't notice anything that would indicate there was anything wrong. Which I'm going to play a video of him being interviewed from a documentary type of episode called Gypsy's Revenge, and he'll kind of go into it a little bit more, which I find it interesting that he says he didn't notice anything that was suspicious or that would indicate anything being wrong.
Like I said, it was extremely cold. It's like the air conditioner had been on full blast and just constantly running. And the house looked normal. I was just looking to see if I could find any people or anything that really just struck me as odd. Like overturned furniture, things that are broken. Gypsy's wheelchairs are still sitting in the living room, and her electric wheelchair was in the bathroom. So that means all three of the wheelchairs that I knew that she had were in the house. Bed was unmade. There was a lot of blankets on it, but nothing looked out of sorts.
When Dave told the cop what was in the house, which included all three of Gypsy's wheelchairs, I just knew that something was wrong.
Bloody knife, no foul odor, no decomposing body. It wasn't until the days that followed that David Blanchard realized what he missed on Sunday afternoon and what he had been missing for the past 6 years. Blanchard and his wife, Kim, who are not related to Dee Dee and Gypsy, became concerned after a vulgar message was posted to the mother and daughter's joint Facebook account Sunday afternoon. They went to check on the family, but after David found nothing inside the home, the couple left and went on with their day as deputies remained on the scene and eventually applied for a search warrant. By Sunday night, the Greene County Sheriff's Office had reported that Dee Dee and Gypsy were missing. Because only one letter differentiates his last name from that of Dee Dee and Gypsy, online commenters have speculated that David and Kim were related and in on the alleged scam. Why didn't David find the body? Why did Kim set up a GoFundMe account after authorities found Dee Dee's body? Why didn't that GoFundMe site go down right after Greene County Sheriff's Jim Arnott's press conference about the fraud scheme? David said he was duped by Dee Dee and Gypsy just like everybody else, and he wants a chance to explain himself and defend his family. On the home search, David said he knows now why he didn't find the body, but that is information he cannot disclose at this time because of the ongoing investigation. What he did point to was a response Arnott gave on Monday. When asked why the neighbor who entered the house didn't find the body, Arnott replied that there was a reason why the neighbor didn't find the body and added, "I don't find that there's anything suspicious related to the neighbor coming in and checking." David said that he and his wife Kim met the Blanchards through some connections in the geek community and became good friends. He said that they got together about once a month over the past few years to do things like go to the movies and plays or visit the zoo. I've said this before, Dee Dee and Gypsy did have like a membership to the zoo, so they would go like monthly to go visit the zoo with these individuals. They had like a group that would go on these trips like once a month to do things like this. David said he had no idea what was really going on inside that home on North Volunteer Way. He said he had no indication that Gypsy was capable of walking, let alone doing what investigators say she did. Every time I have seen her move, it was either in a wheelchair, in a shopping cart, or her scooting across the floor in her own house. She wanted to dress up in costumes and watch cartoons and see kid movies. That was her. She was a kid. David and Kim said they had no idea any of this was going on, or that the sweet teenager who used to play with their daughter was actually a 23-year-old woman who prosecutors say is capable of orchestrating a brutal murder. I'm still upset, David said, but now I want answers. I want to know the whole story just like everybody else.
That's when I started to get angry. At that point, I knew that I had been duped for many years, and just completely felt taken advantage of.
The amount of money that Dee Dee scammed through people, different organizations, surely it's in the thousands and thousands of dollars. Dee Dee scammed me personally for at least $150,000 between unnecessary medical expenses and child support.
Now I want to look at a different article that was actually by the woman that ended up creating the show The Act, and she wrote this for BuzzFeed. This says that their house, like everyone else's around them, had been built by Habitat for Humanity. It had amenities specially built for Gypsy, a ramp up to the front door, a jacuzzi tub to help with my muscles. Gypsy told a television station in 2008, sometimes on summer nights, Dee Dee would set up a projector to play a movie on the side of her house, and the children of the neighborhood, whose parents usually couldn't afford to send them to a movie theater, came over for a treat. Dee Dee charged for concessions, but it was much cheaper than going to the local multiplex, and the money would go to Gypsy and her treatments. It says she had a feeding tube. Sometimes Dee Dee had to drag the oxygen tank around with them nasal cannula looped around Gypsy's ears. When asking about her daughter's diagnosis, Dee Dee would reel off a list as long as her arm: chromosomal defects, muscular dystrophy, epilepsy, severe asthma, sleep apnea, eye problems. It had always been this way. David Blanchard and Kim Blanchard both acknowledged that they said they were told by Dee Dee that Gypsy had 2 chromosome disorders, some very rare chromosome disorder, and that is why she had the problems that she did. And then they also said that she had allergies and was allergic to a lot of things, and then had cancer when she was little. So basically, at that point in time, they were under the impression that Gypsy's problems were in fact caused by a chromosome disorder. And then Amy Pinagar, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, so if I'm not, apologies, but that is Aaliyah's mom, said that Gypsy's grandfather, who had been the last straw, the reason why she left Louisiana, she said she had to flee her abusive husband with Gypsy. It was her own father, Gypsy's grandfather, who had been the last straw. He burned Gypsy with cigarettes, so she lit out from her hometown for good. I don't know what that even means. She lit out. She told Pinnaker that Gypsy's father was a deadbeat alcoholic drug abuser who had mocked his daughter's disabilities, called the Special Olympics a freak show, as Pinnaker understood it. He'd never sent them a dime, not even when Dee Dee and Gypsy had lost everything in Hurricane Katrina. It seemed happy. They went on trips to Disney World. I wanna say that, isn't it interesting how Gypsy made sure to bring up this scenario in her documentary series on Lifetime just recently, whenever she brought that scenario up, or the situation to Christy, saying,
Mom said that Dad was making fun of me, but she said, this is why I don't invite them to anything.
is it possible that Gypsy was just actually Googling herself and reading all these interviews and finding out what people said about her? Kim Blanchard, who lived nearby, was among the first to react. Though Kim had a similar last name to the Blanchards, she wasn't a relative. She had met Dee Dee and Gypsy in 2009 at a science fiction and fantasy convention held in the Ozark, where Gypsy could wear costumes and not be out of place. They were just perfect. Here was this poor sick child who was being taken care of by a wonderful patient mother who only wanted to help everybody. In the past, I told my mom something mean. I wished your mom was my mom instead of my mom because Mrs. Amy let Aaliyah date anyone she wanted, so that hurt my mom, Gypsy wrote one time to her friend Aaliyah. And this same article says Rod eventually remarried and had 2 other children. He and his new wife Christy saw Gypsy often over the first 10 years of her life while they were in Louisiana, and can share pictures from various happy family outings right up until 2004. They remember going to the Special Olympics too, but have good memories of it. All smiles, Christy said. They have a picture of Gypsy grinning widely with her father and brother there. In all of those years, Gypsy never said a word against her mother or anything else. Kim Blanchard's GoFundMe became a flashpoint for online sleuths when Dee Dee's financial fraud was revealed by the sheriff. Kim shut it down, but not before the groups had taken it upon themselves to investigate Kim herself. Several thought that Kim and David Blanchard were lying about their involvement with Gypsy and Dee Dee and assumed that they were relatives because of the last name. Christy Blanchard, meanwhile, was gathering a lot of the news about her stepdaughter from Facebook. That's when she discovered that many thought she and Rod were also in on Dee Dee's plans. Others thought Rod must be a neglectful father who did not support his children. And this article also says, even now it's not clear why Godejohn participated in this scheme. He had no history of violence. His attorney refused to comment on the case. His only prior arrest was for lewd conduct in 2013 at McDonald's, where he was watching pornography on a tablet. He and Gypsy told police he was the one to wield the knife and admitted to stabbing the mother while Gypsy listened in the other room. The process of figuring out what had happened was, in a word, complex. Stanfield went down to Louisiana and dredged up some elements of Dee Dee's past. It took him months to get Gypsy's own medical records. Because Dee Dee had set up power of attorney over Gypsy's medical decisions after Gypsy turned 18, the hospital refused to help. Even though the power of attorney did not surrender Gypsy's rights to look at her own medical documents. When the records finally arrived, though they were so damning, Stanfield called the prosecutor without needing to investigate further. A plea deal was worked out on July 5th. Gypsy pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. The judge gave her the minimum sentence of 10 years. For his part, Godejohn is still scheduled for the trial in November. It was not. Stanfield told me a listed condition of Gypsy's plea bargain that she testify against him. At a recent hearing in mid-July, he looked bewildered and lost, a beard concealing most of his face. His family never seemed to come to the hearings. Gypsy still doesn't feel she actively deceived anyone. I feel like I was just as used as everybody else. She said she used me as a pawn. I was in the dark about it. The only thing I knew was that I could walk and that I could eat. As for everything else, well, she'd shave my hair off and she'd say it's gonna fall out anyway, so let's keep it nice and neat. Gypsy said her mother told her that she had cancer too and would tell her that her medication was cancer medication. She just accepted it. And it didn't occur to her to question any of it. And when it did, she worried about hurting her mother's feelings. It often seems to Gypsy, even now, that Dee Dee really thought she was sick. I was afraid that we were going to get in trouble. The line between right and wrong was kind of blurred because that's the way I was taught. I just grew up that way. When I think about it now, I wish I would have reached out to somebody and told somebody before. I told Nick. You did tell multiple people. She mostly used the internet late at night when her mother was asleep. Nick, she said, was the first person who had offered her real protection. She believed him. Ultimately, after everything that had happened, she thinks she has anger issues and repeatedly takes responsibility for the murder. What I did was wrong. I'll have to live with that. But she said, Nick is the one who took a plot between the both of us and made it into action. Gypsy was the one who had the idea to post about the murder on Facebook so that the police would come check on her. She recalled asking Nick, can we please just post this on Facebook so something will alarm them and make them go look? She recalled asking Nick, can we just please post something on Facebook, something alarming that would make people call the police? But she said he told her to write that. You know, the whole post about that bitch is dead. I repeatedly asked her, are you angry with your mom, with the doctors? She will admit only to frustration. It makes me frustrated that none of the other doctors could see I was perfectly fine and that my legs were not skinny. Like someone who was really paralyzed, that I don't need a feeding tube, stuff like that. In jail, Gypsy had access to tablet computers. She looked up the definition of Munchausen by proxy. After hearing the word used to describe her situation, her mother matched every symptom. She looked it up. Do you find it kind of interesting, the fact that David really didn't see Dee Dee's body? If he knew that he went in there and was, you know, he noticed Gypsy's wheelchairs being in the home, he noticed that instantly, he noticed the temperature of the room. I feel like even if you're looking for somebody that's missing and you look to the bed and you see things are kind of, like the house wasn't in perfect order, obviously, but if you're looking for somebody and you thought, well, maybe they could be in the house or they're asleep or something. I don't know why he didn't walk over to the bed. I mean, obviously it's not that hard of it to look. You would have seen something like you know, a pile of something. I don't know. That's always kind of odd to me. And there have been people that said that he's changed his story a couple times throughout this, and it might just be human error. You know, obviously as time passes by through things, people tend to forget, or details kind of seem to fade a little bit. You don't remember exactly what happened in the instant perfectly every single time. So again, I want to reiterate, I'm not accusing anybody of being involved in anything. I am just throwing information out there. So I want to make that very, very clear. I'm not saying that I know or I believe that anybody did anything specifically or anything like that. Just to be clear, like, please do not get it misconstrued. This is just me talking about individuals that have come up in this case, period. So obviously there are quite a few various scenarios and individuals that are involved in this case, and it is a very complicated case when you actually start going through it, and it's not as cut and dry as they want you to believe. So this video was more so just to kind of go over the various individuals that are, you know, outside of being directly Gypsy and Nick, and to just touch base on those people again and put some information about that. I don't intend to dox anybody or do anything that could harm anybody, of course, obviously, but just to clarify a couple things and just go through it so everybody understands whenever people are being mentioned, because sometimes I'll see in the comments people will be asking, oh, who's David? Oh, who's Dan? Oh, who's this individual? That they've never heard of them. So I hope this is helpful to you and kind of helps refresh some information that you may or may not have heard in the past, or makes you think about things. Obviously people have various scenarios and people have always speculated about some of these individuals in this case, but yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please let me know down in the comments if you enjoyed this video or what you think about these individuals. Please like and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos like this, or if you have any suggestions about anything that you want me to cover, let me know that too down in the comments. I read you guys' comments and I really appreciate everybody that watches my videos and supports me. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. I will see you guys next time. Bye!